The most surprising thing about the influence of Herod the Great on the Christmas story is that hardly anyone today seems to even notice it. And yet, when Matthew told the story, he introduced Herod very, very early. It comes in the first sentence of what we call Matthew chapter 2. But Luke gets to the powerful leader of Judea even faster. In fact, much faster. In the very first sentence of Luke's biography of Jesus, he begins with this: "In the days of Herod, king of Judea." That's amazing. Of all the things Luke could have told us first, he decided to paint a picture of the political situation in Judea as he begins the story of the birth, life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Luke thought it was extremely important that we know about Herod as we dive into the Christmas story. Thankfully, it's not hard to find a lot about Herod. If you ever get to travel to Israel, for instance, you may come home thinking you've been on a tour of all the things Herod built. Instead of a tour of the Holy Land, it's sometimes a little like you were on a tour of Herod's land. But don't miss the context. Herod built everything he built just before Jesus was born. In a way, Herod was building the set of the Christmas story. Among Herod's great building projects, well, you may have seen Masada, the rock fortress on the Judean wilderness, or Caesarea by the Mediterranean Sea. That city was the crown jewel of everything Herod built. And during the time of the New Testament era, it was amazing. Herod built Caesarea from scratch. The footprint of Jerusalem's old city today is much the way Herod left it 2,000 years ago. Herod filled in a deep valley in the center of Jerusalem, doubled the size of the Temple Mount, and greatly expanded the size of the city. When you see the huge stones of the Western Wall today, you're actually looking at a wall built under Herod's watchful eye. And if you get a chance to go underground in that same area, you'll see even more of what Herod constructed. It is mind-boggling. Even the Christmas story is profoundly impacted by one of Herod's building projects. As Herod grew more and more paranoid, he wanted to move his living quarters and his governmental operations away from crowded Jerusalem. That led him to a prominent hill 7 miles south of the city. It was there that he built a new palace inside a fortress, and around the fortress, Herod's workers poured out rock and sand for years until they had built a mountain. It's a man-made mountain. Herod named this mountain fortress after himself. It is called the Herodium. And here's how it affects the Christmas story. The Herodium was only 3 miles southeast of Bethlehem. So when the sun came up every day, this fortress cast a shadow on the shepherds, their sheep, and the small communities that were all around this location. Bethlehem was one of those communities. When the Magi came in search of Judea's new king, they first went to Jerusalem. From there, they made the short trip south to Bethlehem, and it was there that a mysterious star seemed to shine on the place where Joseph and Mary and baby Jesus were living. Now, Matthew reminds us that some time has passed from the actual birth story. He says they were living in a house. The Magi left their gifts in that house and then returned to their own homes another way without reporting back to Herod. Now remember, once Herod built the Herodium, he split time between Jerusalem and the new mountain fortress. Now we do not know where Herod was when he gave the orders, but he soon figured out that he had been outwitted by his foreign visitors, and in a rage, he gave the order to slaughter all the male infants 2 years old or younger. Not just in Bethlehem, but in all the surrounding villages too. Since Herod kept a strong military presence wherever he was, it's easy to imagine soldiers mounting their horses at the Herodium and fanning out toward all the nearby villages. What, of course, is not easy to imagine is the grief Herod's order created. By morning, the entire region must have been in shock. You know, critics of the Bible sometimes point to this story and say something like this: if Herod really killed all the infants of Bethlehem, why isn't this recorded in history somewhere other than in the Bible? Those critics project that Christians made up the story to make Herod look like an evil king. In reality, no one had to create an evil persona for Herod the Great. He wasn't a great guy, he was a great builder. That's how he got his nickname. Inside his own family, Herod killed his favorite wife, her mother, her grandfather, her brother, that was a young man who was serving as the high priest at the time, and 2 of their sons. Just a few days before Herod died, the king rose up from his deathbed long enough to give the order that a 3rd son be executed. Herod became so well known for killing people inside his family, inside the royal circle, that the Roman emperor is said to have quipped it would be safer to be one of Herod's pigs than his sons. If you don't get the joke, Herod was Jewish and he didn't eat pork. Therefore, he wouldn't kill his pigs. But boy, did he kill his family members. Perhaps another story of Herod killing children would help you tell this darker side of the Christmas story. When Herod was first taking the land called Judea, most communities simply gave way to him. But there were a few communities where he had to take those places by force. The farming community of Arbel was one of the places that fought back. The great cliff of Arbel is visible from every corner of the Sea of Galilee. It's the highest point. Every military force wanted to maintain a lookout on Mount Arbel, including Herod the Great. But the people here were fiercely independent. They were so zealous for their faith and for the Jewish land that they were part of a group called the Zealots. And these Zealots of Arbel hid supplies and weapons in some of the countless caves around the mountain. They had secret paths that led to those caves, giving them an advantage over the Roman soldiers who had been ordered to kill them. They simply took their families down these secret passages down to the caves and hid there. But Herod devised a way to lower his soldiers down the cliff. There they built fires in front of the caves, driving out those who were hiding there. And according to Josephus the historian, Herod's soldiers drove swords through the adults and tossed the children off the cliffs. This was not an unusual action in ancient warfare. Under the rule of King Amaziah, for instance, soldiers of Judah had thrown 10,000 Edomites to their deaths from the cliffs near the Dead Sea in the wilderness. And in the heartbreaking lament known as Psalm 137, the last words of this song are, "O daughter of Babylon, who are to be destroyed, happy is the one who repays you as you have done to us. Happy is the one who takes and dashes your little ones against the rocks." That's a horrible image. That's a song that reflects a grief and an anger I've never known, and I pray I will never know such pain. But for now, just know that in the ancient world, throwing people to their deaths wasn't all that unusual. And killing infants, it was simply part of warfare. And Herod had declared war on Christmas. If there was any chance someone might declare that the Messiah had been born in Bethlehem, Herod decided, we'll just kill all the candidates. And he had killed so many people for so long, for so little reason, it's really not surprising that Bethlehem's heartbreak never even made the news cycle. In our final coaching video related to the Christmas story, we're going to follow Mary and Joseph as they escape Bethlehem, settle briefly in Egypt, and finally return to Nazareth. Now remember, all of the videos I'm using in these coaching sessions are available for you to use with your audience. Just follow the links below this video. And you will find hundreds of videos, photographs, and artistic images you can use in your own teaching at BibleStock.org.